Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins in the shadows of Boston's streets. A chilling secret unfolds in the year 1962. Loretta, an ambitious young reporter with an unyielding curiosity, stumbles upon a series of heinous crimes haunting the city. The veil of mystery cloaks the perpetrators. As three single women fall victim to a gruesome fate, they are assaulted and murdered with an eerie precision. Driven by a relentless pursuit of truth, Loretta embarks on an arduous investigation that weaves together threads of despair and terror. Each victim's story echoes a macabre similarity, leaving Loretta convinced that the same nefarious hand is at play. With the cautious blessing of her boss, she delves deeper into the abyss, determined to unravel the enigma of the so-called Boston Strangler. Whispers among the community reveal ghastly details of the killer's methodical brutality. The first victim was bound to a chair with a broomstick between her trembling legs, succumbing to a haunting demise. A bizarre adornment adorned the victim's neck, a bow crafted from pantyhose. And this grotesque signature is not confined to a single tragedy, for the subsequent victims suffer the same fate. The pantyhose bows, a twisted calling card left behind, whisper of a disturbed psyche that delights in inflicting both pain and pleasure. These fallen women, all beyond the age of 60, unwittingly become pawns in a deranged game of dominance and submission. The Boston Strangler, it seems, is no mere psychopath. His dark desires intertwine with a fetish for pantyhose, the physical embodiment of his twisted obsessions. Loretta's fearless pursuit of truth does not go unnoticed. The revelations she unveils send shockwaves through the city, leaving its inhabitants both captivated and terrified. Yet, as the truth seeps into the collective consciousness, so does dissent. The clamor of public outcry pierces the air, and the weight of public pressure descends upon the police department. Succumbing to the tempest of discontent, the chief reluctantly suspends the investigation, shrouding the city in a veil of frustrated silence. However, evil has a way of persisting. Undeterred by the faltering resolve of those tasked with protecting the innocent, the Boston Strangler lurks in the shadows, biding his time. Like a predator lying in wait, he strikes again, his malevolence escalating to new heights. This time, he dons a deceptive guise, posing as a maintenance worker, before delivering a savage blow with a hammer and drowning an elderly woman in her own bathtub. The city once again finds itself caught in the throes of media frenzy, as the grotesque crime seizes headlines and sparks renewed determination. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, Loretta is assigned an assistant, an ally amidst the encroaching darkness. Days turn into nights, and nights into days, as they painstakingly unravel the fragments of the killer's puzzle. In their relentless pursuit of justice, they seek solace within the grieving families, hoping to glean any semblance of truth from their shattered lives. The revelations that emerge stir the city to its core, creating ripples of fear and anger that crash against the fortress of the police station. The demand for answers grows deafening, as an army of reporters descends upon the building, seeking explanations and justice in equal measure. Caught within the whirlwind of chaos and mounting pressure, the malevolent presence emerges once more from the depths of his malevolence. The life of a young woman, tragically cut short, serves as a chilling reminder of the shadow that looms over Boston. A witness emerges, his account painting a portrait of the killer, a white man with black hair, a mere grain of sand in the vast desert of the unknown. Desperate for insight, Loretta seeks the counsel of a psychologist, hoping to decipher the twisted mind behind the madness. In their consultations, a glimmer of understanding begins to surface. The expert's words hint at the psychological trauma that often plagues serial killers, tying their actions to the echoes of their past. The sudden shift in the killer's targets defies conventional wisdom, leaving Loretta grappling with the realization that there is more to this enigma than meets the eye. As the city awaits answers, and justice teeters on the precipice, she will need to pierce through the veil of mystery that obscures the killer's true motivations. Someone else appears to be using the killer's method of operation to conduct crimes. The inquiry proceeds until New Year's Eve, when Loretta learns of the sixth victim's discovery. The victim this time is a young woman, and a witness saw the killer posing as a talent scout. Loretta is desperate to identify the murderer, but the case appears to be becoming more convoluted and twisted than she anticipated. The killer soon targets another young woman. He earns her trust by impersonating a heater repairman, before attacking her from behind and strangling her to death. Within a few days, 2 more young women are discovered dead, both murdered with a bow tied around their necks. Loretta and her helper separate to gather information. The assistant looks into the eyes of the 7th victim, Mistress, a secretary for a toy manufacturer. According to her co-workers, she is the mistress of the company's CEO, and they were feuding over her pregnancy. Meanwhile, Loretta investigates the 8th victim, a female college student, who had recently split up with her lover, Daniel. Daniel, according to her mother, has displayed weird conduct, and has been expelled from university for harassing. Both the boss and Daniel seem to be key suspects in the case. Loretta walks to the police station, and personally delivers the evidence to the officer in charge. The cops stake out the mistress' apartment, based on Loretta's hints, and eventually catch the boss red-handed. The boss admits having an affair with his mistress, but denies any participation in the deaths. During the interrogation, unfortunately, he cannot be convicted owing to a lack of evidence. The authorities found no evidence linking the 8th victim's ex-boyfriend, Daniel, to the murders. Loretta is dissatisfied with the police's efficiency, as the case comes to a halt. Shortly after, the New York Police Department contacts her to inform that a murder similar to the Boston Strangler has occurred within their jurisdiction. The victim is an elderly person, with a bow tied around their neck, and a suspect named Paul has been apprehended. When the police review Paul's records, they discover he was in Boston prior to the first 5 murders. The New York police call the Boston police numerous times, to confirm and even travel there to investigate, but the Boston police refuse to cooperate. The New York police must release the suspect, due to a lack of proof. Loretta is enraged by the inaction of the Boston police, and swiftly crafts a press release, blasting their incompetence. The police respond by revealing Loretta and her assistant's identities, and accusing them of tampering with the investigation. Within a few days, a slew of weird people appear on Loretta's doorstep, and she receives death threats. Despite the threats, she is determined to continue her investigation, until the truth is known. Soon, the officer approaches Loretta and introduces her to the culprit, Albert. He was previously committed to a mental institution for harassment and assault. His strategy is to masquerade as a repairman or talent scout, in order to acquire the victim's trust. According to a witness, Albert does not use any tools to measure the victim's body, instead touching their thighs with his hands. Loretta recalls that during the 6th instance, a witness described the culprit deceiving them by dressing up as a talent scout. Albert appears to fit the profile of the murderer. Loretta reports her findings to the officer in charge, but he believes Albert is unlikely to be the murderer, because he was in the mental hospital during the first 6 cases. Loretta returns to the mental institution, to investigate, and discovers large gaps in Albert's discharge documents. He had already been dismissed under the guise of visiting his family, as it turns out. Maybe he used it as an alibi. The police then summon a witness, a keen observer of the hospital, and ask them to identify Albert. The witness, however, does not recognize Albert, and instead points to his roommate, George. At this stage, the matter has grown somewhat complicated. The officer in charge informs Loretta that George is a high IQ psychiatric patient, who was jailed a year ago for the murder of a gas station clerk. He does, however, have an alibi that places him somewhere else during the murders. Meanwhile, a well-known lawyer emerges unexpectedly on the scene. He has reached an agreement with Albert, in which Albert freely admits to all of the crimes, but his confession cannot be used as proof. In exchange, the prosecution will charge him with further offenses, and sentence him to life in jail. Furthermore, the lawyer intends to create a book titled, Confessions of the Boston Killing Spree, with only Albert's assent, resulting in a 6-figure reward. Loretta is perplexed by everything. The authorities are attempting to relieve public pressure, making Albert a scapegoat, and in exchange, he can gain from his reputation as the Boston Strangler. With no trial or inquiry, the case is ludicrous and outrageous. It is settled quickly, leaving many questions unanswered. More tracking cases arise in 1965, and the victims are strangled with a bow around their necks, precisely as before. The Boston Strangler appears to be back. Loretta does not waste time and hurries to the crime scene, where she reads the death records with the assistance of local cops, verifying the killer's method of operation is the same as before. Later, while riding in her car, Loretta reads the local newspapers, and discovers that Daniel, the suspect in the 8th case, lives in Massachusetts. After sharing this information with the local police, they discover Daniel spent 2 years in a mental institution, sharing a room with George, who was convicted of murdering a gas station attendant. Daniel is arrested by the police, but he refuses to confess during interrogation, and is freed the next day, due to a lack of proof. Loretta realizes that the only hope is Albert's confession tape, which claims to be the Boston Strangler. She obtains the vital piece of evidence with the officer's assistance. After studying the recording, they discover that Albert's confession is riddled with errors, and his lawyer purposely pushed him to fabricate non-existent details. They are about to reveal the truth, when Loretta receives a phone call from Albert, who has chosen to break the agreement he made with his lawyer. He sets up a meeting with her at the prison, in order to reveal everything he knows. But before they can meet, Albert is murdered by another convict. Loretta is startled and heartbroken when the truth dies with him. It is too late by the time she arrives at the prison, and the area is crowded with people. A janitor appears in front of her, and places a note in her hand. She locates an informant, a previous prisoner of the same mental hospital, following the hints on the note. Albert, he claims, was his roommate while they were both in the psychiatric institution. Daniel and George, in addition to them, shared the same room. Daniel and George gathered a lot of information during the murders, and used it to get Albert involved. Later, George hired a lawyer, who devised the phony employment offer, in order to frame Albert as a scapegoat. Their motivation was financial, since they might receive $10,000 for reporting each murder, and get away with more than $100,000 in total. Loretta pieces together the case, with this information, as the story finally finishes. The so-called Boston Strangler is not a single individual. The prior murders were possibly committed by Paul, who was apprehended in New York, but acquitted due to the Boston police's carelessness. Other people imitated the Boston Strangler, murdering young women, such as the boss who killed his mistress, Daniel, who threatened his ex-girlfriend, and George, who disguised himself as a talent scout. Albert was merely a scapegoat, silenced by the police, who may have dispatched the inmate to kill him. Not long after, Loretta learns and publicizes the truth, triggering another social storm. Under duress, the cops open a new inquiry into the murders. Loretta and her assistant's efforts enable them to gain a second chance to solve the case. It is still disappointing. Loretta's dedication to the investigation causes her marriage to fall apart, and Daniel is not charged with murder. George too does not receive his reward. There are 12 unresolved riddles behind the 13 horrible killings. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out.